Is my screen visible?
It's visible. Students, you have to be interactive. You can, Shreyas has replied in the chat window.
Yes. Okay, yes, I can see Shreyas has replied and Keithan also. Okay, good. Yeah, go ahead, Namita.
Okay. So, good morning, students. Let me formally introduce my friend Vikram. Vikram Lakshmikant passed out from JNNCE CSC branch in the year 2007. He has an overall experience of 14.5 years in the IT industry. He currently working at App Team as a manager in the research and development group. His responsibility is to manage a team of developers and release products on time with the best quality possible. During his stay at Microsoft for 10 years, he handled several different challenging roles. Vikram has worked with several high profile customers in the area of Microsoft Dynamics, NAV, Business Central, Azure, Power Platform in all the three regions, APAC, EMEA, and NEA. Apart from his professional life, he has achieved in other areas also. He has participated in Indian television game show Kaun Banega Crorepati and won 50 lakhs rupees. He had received an award from our PM. He has helped NGO organizations through different services. He is also interested in Kannada literature. He reads many things related to it. His personal philosophy is whatever you do, do it wholeheartedly. JNNC is proud about its alumnus. It's our pleasure having him here to deliver a technical talk for you all. Over to you, Vikram.
Yes. Thank you, Namita. I think that was a very generous and very nice introduction. I'm flattered. So thank you so much. Right. So as Namita has spoken a lot already, and I also wanted to maybe start with a bit of a detailed introduction, a little bit more about me. So yeah, I started in 2007 in a small company called Blue Star Infotech. These are some. This is a collage of some of the pictures that I've taken in many years of work. Right. So it so happened that I started working on a product called Business Central. Now it is called Business Central. But what I want to showcase is that although we are geeks and we work on a lot of product and technology, there is also a lot of fun and interesting things, lots of friends to be made, right? So these, I'm also a gamer that and not many people know. I play a lot of games and watch movies, and as Namita has mentioned, also interested in literature and all that. Another thing. So here is the deal. Okay, so if you want today's session to be more interesting, you have to be more interactive, either in the chat window or you can unmute yourself and you can talk with me. Okay, so that would be the best. But yeah, so one thing that kept me interested throughout school life and even now in my adult life is just reading things. So I keep reading a lot of it. And as Steve Jobs has mentioned in one of his famous college speeches, so the dots connect backwards, right? So that's what happened with me. So in the year 2011, I got a chance to participate in one of the most dream come true moments of being there on the sets of Kaun Banega Crorepati, meeting the great legend Amitabh Bachchan. And with God's grace, I won 50 lakhs on that show. So again, one of the highlights of my life so far. And again, this quizzing or the interest in learning many things. I used to read a lot of books, newspapers, anything and everything. So that gave me an opportunity to also go to a stage where I would receive an award from our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji. So again, that was also an amazing moment to be there. Very few people get to meet and talk with chief ministers, and I got to talk almost 30, 40 seconds with our PM being there, talking to him. So again, that was a special moment. But like, I like the gist of it is that this has been many, many years. It has taken many years for this moment to arrive. Right? I mean, a lot of factors like luck also play a role. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. But during my career, uh, so far I've worked on many products, many different teams, different companies, right? So while I was at Microsoft for 10 years, I got to work with some of the biggest companies in the world, like HP or Infosys or Wipro. And I got to know about their, the way they do things, the way they do product development, they do support. So I am trying to, take all that knowledge and my experience and trying to squeeze it into just 50 slides of lot of text, right? So that all of you can get the most out of it, right? So I have a very simple agenda today, and we talk about product development or software development lifecycle, uh, how agile has changed software development lifecycle. What is different from the traditional to agile methodology, and it has been the latest for the last 4 or 5 years now. Cloud, right? I'm sure all of you would be using one or the other type of cloud service. So, what is it that all of you, as students, and maybe in a year as professionals, have to do differently and think differently when you think of developing your product or your service, whatever you're working on the cloud? Okay, so this is just a very simple topic that I'm going to present to all of you today. And in the end, of course, I want to have a lot of time available for questions and answers. So if you have any questions on anything that I have spoken today, work or otherwise, feel free to use the chat window and ask your questions. Okay, good. So let's do this. Let's see how many of you are active. Okay, so let's start with as you know, I'm very good at quiz, right? So yeah, let's start with a quiz and see how many of you are active. Just this quiz is just to test that. Okay, I'll give you an example, very simple one. So I'll show you a question, and you can use the chat window to share your answers. Okay. So yeah, again, based on the number of responses, I will see how much to cover. Okay. So here is an example. The question is, it's a quote from somebody. You just have to name the person. It could be a fictional character or a real life person. So you have to type in the name in the chat window. Okay, I'll give you an example. This is the first question is Mugembo Khush Hua. Anybody knows who this person is? It's a very popular. I hope you've seen the movie. It's a very good film, Mr. India. And the answer is Mugembo. So this is the example. Okay, good. Bharadwaj has responded. Shrestha Bharadwaj. Very good. Yeah, nice. So let's see how many of you respond to more questions. Okay. Question number one. This is an easy one. Bazinga. Again, this person is very scientific, known for physics. Okay, yes, I can see Sheldon. Shoaib has responded. Shrestha also has responded. Nice. And Kirtana. Very good. Nice. Yeah, you guys have got it. I can understand Big Bang Theory is a very popular show among you guys. That's good. Bazinga. Okay. So now maybe the questions get a little bit difficult. I have two more of this. Let's see how many of you get this one. Okay. this is uh, this is a very popular quote in the tech world, known those who've been following development, tech, and all these things will know it. It's a very popular quote, and there are lots of videos. If you just go to YouTube and search for this, you will know the person, a very passionate person. I've met him in person. So it's a very popular quote. Let's see, who is this? This is Steve Ballmer. So while he attended many conferences, and in one of those conferences, he realized that Microsoft needed more developers, people like you and me, to utilize their technology, and he was so passionate. He's always full of energy. Okay, so this is a pretty easy one compared to this. Let's see how many of you are, fans of this iconic person. Okay, Amit has got it. Nice. So we have some geeks and nerds in the group. Amit has responded Steve Jobs. Anybody else who thinks it's a different person? But no. Okay, good. Amit, I think you are. It looks like you watch a lot of Steve Jobs videos. But yeah, that's really good. That's correct. Steve Jobs. If you look at any of his presentations, it could be iPod, iPhone, iPad, anything. So during these town hall presentations, he always says one more thing. Good job, Amit. Okay, and the last one, again, I've met this person very recently in 2020, and I respect that person a lot. The question is, our industry does not respect tradition, it only respects innovation. So somebody, a leader in the IT industry, has shared this. Uh, I don't know. This is a very popular quote. He told this about 5, 6 years ago in 2014, 7 years ago. And it is true to the IT industry, right? So IT industry is seeing a huge growth. Anybody, any guesses on who this could be? Right, Shrestha. Okay, good. Yes, Shrestha and Tejaswini and Kirtana have responded. Yes, it's Satya Nadella. He mentioned this I think in his one of the first few interviews after he became the CEO of Microsoft. And he's just an amazing person to meet and even face to face. He's so humble and he's always nice. So that's nice. I also had, like I said, I've met two of the people I've spoken about. But this is a very profound statement, although it is simple. In the IT industry, what is respected and valued is innovation. So let's go through our topic today, which is product development lifecycle or software development lifecycle, and see how innovation has changed the path of a company and how it made the company one of the best known brands in the world and also one of the most profitable companies, right? So when we talk about product development lifecycle, we have been doing a lot of these things in our studies already, right? So we will explore more when we come to Agile, but it always starts with an idea or a problem, right? So something that you're trying to solve, something that you're trying to improve. So that is where the life cycle starts, at the genesis of an idea or a problem. And I've used this picture to capture various aspects that goes into making of a product, right? So although I'll give you examples of products which are in the consumer sphere, but most of you and me, most of us, we work with companies, enterprise companies, or small to medium scale, many types of companies, right? So think of this as a project that you've already done, or maybe you will be doing this semester or next semester, right? So how best can you accomplish all these different levels of a life cycle into your own product? So to give you an example from my own days of doing a project in the 8th semester back in 2007, we had an idea, and we always started with defining the functions and creating that table properly, and then writing the first base UI, and then building the backend and so on. But usually, if you look at it, you would have studied many different software development models in software engineering subject already. And from my experience of working with companies, I can tell you today that a lot of the product development happens this way. We start with requirement gathering, and let's use this one. Okay, not highlight. Yeah. So we start here with requirement analysis and see what the customer wants, and then design. So design is generally done by architects or someone with a lot of knowledge of the system, because they would have known what could be the challenge of some design, what could be the design flaws, and from their experience, and they learn a lot. So the architects here come up with a design, and then a lot of the developers are spend their time and efforts in coding as well as testing, right? So a lot of the work of product building happens here. The hard work of writing code, combining various codes, testing, version management, and all that. So finally, the most important part of this, where the rubber hits the road, is deployment. So this is where we will see how we build our product in an ideal scenario in a lab, just like without a lot of exposure to many integration elements and so on. And then it goes into deployment mode. Once the challenges of deployment are addressed, it goes into support. So this is the theory, right? So today, what I'll do is I'll give you an example of how a company used this to think innovatively, and like I said, how it has become the leader in its segment. Okay, so the example we'll talk about is, okay, let's go to the next one, is Netflix, right? So before I share what was Netflix before, so do you know that Netflix was not a streaming service when it started? So does anybody know what it was before it became the popular, and we know all these streaming service. I mean, today, we share one person's account is shared by many to watch videos and all that. So do you know what it was, the business model of Netflix before it became? Yes, right. We have very intelligent people here today. So Adesh Sriram has mentioned, it used to be a DVD rental service, right? So let's say Spider-Man or any other movie, let's say Avengers, you want to watch it during Christmas. So it used to send a catalog, and you have to fill it up, with the movie that you want to rent, and then you used to send it. And Netflix used to be a DVD rental service, and they used to mail you their DVDs, right? And then once you're done watching the DVD, you will have to put it in an envelope and return it, right? So this was their business model in the beginning of 2000s, right? So that's when they realized they want to move away from this into a much more scalable, much more larger model, right? So you remember the different aspects of software development: requirement analysis, design, coding. So they started with all that somewhere in the early 2000s, right? So Netflix also has a very interesting blog. I don't know how many of you have seen it, but if it interests you on how they build stuff, a lot of it is very technical. So you can go to Netflix tech blog. There is also a blog of the data centers and the deployment teams. So you can go there. And this is how a team at Netflix is organized, right? So they have different roles within a team or within a service. So Netflix, there are many things, right? So there is a play something button, there is a profiles button, and there is support and so on. So Netflix says that during this product development life cycle, many different roles or many different types of people are involved. So I was telling you, usually when it comes to design, uh, an architect or a senior person with a lot of design experience, uh, he handles the design element of it. Now, why is that? Let's say tomorrow I join a company, all of you join some organizations tomorrow, or when I say tomorrow, next year, 2022, and you can't expect to start designing solutions because there are many aspects. We'll come to that, and it requires an experience of different types of handling different types of software, hardware. So a person who has tried a lot of these things, who has an idea of security aspects, so they do the design. And as I mentioned, developers like you and me, we then look at the design, what we need to do, what is the role, what is the type of functionality we want to build, and then that gets built. And then it goes to the QA team for testing. So they have software development engineer test, SDET. So these SDETs, they perform the QA, and they have a completely separate team which do release management. And because you know development and release requires a lot of following the protocol, and making sure that Netflix does a lot of security patching and all that releases, but the whole site never goes down, right? Because there are a lot of moving parts to making a release. So release, it's a specialized area, release engineering, and we also call it site reliability engineering. So they do that, and many admins or even database administrators or cloud engineers, they make sure that it is operating at peak efficiency. Many times it happens that I'm trying to write a simple program which uses 5 tables in a SQL server. But before I start, I want to download SQL Server Enterprise Edition to write my small web application, right? So we don't need all that, right? We only need SQL Server Express. We don't even need a UI. We can do that through, SQL queries. So that's the role of this sysadmin. He makes sure that a lot of the hardware and software, is that what we need is, only the necessary components are used. You don't have to fill it with too many unnecessary things. Finally, it comes to a separate group, usually called the support group. The support group also have access to different tools. There is no development in the support group, but a lot of debugging. So there also need to be technical people, but they go through what is wrong, why certain things are not working, why it is not working in Android apps, but why is it working in iOS and so on. So this is how. Okay, one moment. Let me get some more. So this is how typically a company like Netflix or most other companies operate their product development. Okay. Again, if you have any questions, anything you want to ask me, feel free to message me in the chat window. I'm monitoring it. I have another screen behind. Okay. Now, as Adesh has mentioned, they started with DVD rentals, and then through all the innovation and design and the development of engineers like you, they moved on to streaming, and the rest is history, as they say. So because once they started with streaming, they started with renting a lot of their movies, and then they realized that they're only renting, so they may have to give it back. So then they started doing their own production and so on. So I'm sure many of you watch Netflix. Now, moving on to the next aspect of what we want to talk about, agile, right? So I'm sure you would have studied agile in your classes some time ago. Can anybody tell me what is agile? Any particular terms that you associate with agile? Anything? In general, agility means flexibility. So anything anybody wants to share or talk about agile? Okay, so in the interest of time, I will go ahead. So we know the traditional software development methodology, right? We studied waterfall model and so many other different types of models, but agile is the one that is the most popular in the industry for the last 10, 12 years. And this came about when a group of engineers and architects, they met in a software development conference, and they said, the waterfall model is so inefficient, and we're not able to deliver fixes or features faster, so we need to do something. So these 10, 12 people came together and formed the Agile Manifesto. So that is not in the scope of our what we want to discuss today. But let's take the traditional product development methodology, design, build, test, deploy, support, and how can we make it faster so that we get to the core of the product quickly, right? I'll give you an example, right? I know it may become too much theory. I'll give you an example. So compared to traditional way of product development, how is Agile different? Now, this is a very popular example. I'm sure you would know or you already studied. So let's go through the waterfall model, where you collect the requirement, you build component by, based on the requirement you build. Let's say the end result is to design a car, right? So you first start with the assembly line, the chassis, and then you start adding wheels, and then engine, and steering, everything. So by the time it goes from step 1 to step 4, it will take years, or it takes a long time. Now, how is Agile different? What different way is Agile introducing? So in Agile, what we focus on is the bare minimum, right? So if you think that my end goal is to design a car, what is the core of the car? What does the car do, right? The car takes you from one place to another, right? So going from point A to point B is what a car does. So instead of this end result, let's start with this skateboard, right? So all you need is going from point A to point B. Why not use a skateboard? So Agile is an iterative way to go from, to do the same thing. And when I say iterative, it is going through the same cycle, but in a shorter duration. So most Agile development happens in sprints, right? So which is a 2-week sprint, 3-week sprint, and a maximum of 4-week sprint. So today, even at Aptian or at Microsoft, we try to come up with some functionality in 2 weeks, right? Or something, it could be just a button, or it could be just a text field. So now there are many advantages of doing this kind of thing. So let's say that in the first iteration, we come up with a skateboard. The second iteration, we just add a handle with the battery. In the third iteration, we go to a cycle, right? In the fourth, it could be a motorcycle. And then finally, we arrive at the car, right? So I hope you're getting this gist of what I'm trying to say. Product development today follows the Agile methodology. And when you join, many different, companies, whatever company it could be, most companies today follow Agile, 99%. I haven't seen anybody following the waterfall model. And Agile has its own way of doing things, sprint, retrospective, stand-ups, and so on. But the gist of it, tomorrow when you want to do your project or your internship, think of what is the core of this, right? What is at the heart of this functionality, and how can we start with that? How can we be more iterative? So that is the most important takeaway you can have on this slide. Okay. Now, let's say Netflix, continuing with our example, right? So you transform Netflix from a DVD rental company to a streaming company, right? So you copied all the video files in a data center or somewhere in a centralized location. You started watching it. You assume, let's say, that people will be watching it on their TVs or on their laptops. But things changed. Now more people are using mobile for watching Netflix, right? So you need an iterative thought process on how you can add more to the Netflix features, which can support people. So let's say I want to start watching a movie while I'm on the college bus on my phone, right? So, and then let's say that I come home and there is a tab. I then go and continue the movie on the tab. And finally, I get something to eat, so that I shut down the tab, I put it on my TV, right? So how can you as a developer think of how to use the agile model? So you will be getting a lot of feedback that certain things are not running well on the phone, but it runs well on the tab and on the screen. So Netflix continued their development, and what they did is, I don't know who can tell me what is this show I'm talking about. Clues are here. Let's see. Okay, Suraj has mentioned collaborative effort. That's good. So tell me the name of the show. Okay, so Netflix, what they do now is that it's an amazing service, right? It has to be available all the time. You should be able to stream it on your phone using data connection, or using Wi-Fi, or the highest quality of Wi-Fi for HDR content. So they copy different bitrate, different videos in different servers, and based on your data connection, they evolve the streaming, right? So that is the way of taking the feedback. You remember that we didn't go to the car in the first instance, right? So we went from bicycle to motorcycle to car. So this is also a way of evolution. So they didn't build the final product, but they save different bit rates at different servers. And I still don't have the name of the TV show. Okay, I guess not many of you watched, but I don't believe it. So tell me the name of the TV show before we go to the next slide. So this is another way of how Netflix was agile. They took the feedback from the customers, from the end users, and they changed it so that, okay, yes, Ananya has mentioned Squid Game. Amit, good. You guys are listening. I'm surprised. Good. It's not bored then. I've not bored you. So yeah, Squid Game is right. So this is how Netflix does. It saves different bitrate videos in different places, so that you can start off and you can continue from where you left off. Okay, good. So 10 more minutes. I'll talk about cloud agile, and we'll end by 10, and then questions. Right. Now coming to how do we combine SDLC and agile product development with cloud, right? So as you know, cloud is omnipresent. It's everywhere. And all of us use cloud services. If you have an Android phone, most of the Google services are on their cloud. And like I said, Netflix. And if you look at the biggest money maker for Amazon or Microsoft today, is their cloud data centers. Now let's combine what we've learned, which is software development and agile with cloud. Okay, so when I completed engineering 15 years ago, we did not have such ready access to internet, right? So we always thought of from a on-premise mentality. That means the server has to be here, users have to be here, everything has to be there, development, everything has to be there. But now, because internet is everywhere, and high quality reliable internet is there, many companies realize the benefit of moving to cloud. It gives them faster updates, short time to react, and so on. So right, so companies realize that being on the cloud, they don't have to work everything. A lot of the cloud service providers take care of many things here. So how is the whole product development lifecycle different, or what is different when it goes to cloud? Okay. So, okay, I think I showed too much, but yeah. So as I was saying, cloud offers many different features. So drinking a lot of water is very good. So that's what I'm doing. So cloud brings with it many inherent benefits. For example, you don't have to worry about storage, or what is the device that you're accessing on, your consumption device. You know, cloud played a big role in work from home as well, because many of the services were already cloud based. So people, developers like you and me, could sit at home and listen to Google Meet is a cloud service, right? Just through our browsers, we could do it. But remember the different roles that I spoke about uh, in a Netflix team. So when it comes to cloud, there are more, or sort of more evolved roles into a cloud based product development. So of course the business leaders and all that, so the requirements and all that will be there. There's a project manager, but now the architect will be a cloud architect. He knows how, what are the advantages or disadvantages of different clouds. It is AWS, IBM, Oracle, Microsoft, Alibaba, whatever, many different types. There are hundreds and thousands of cloud service providers that you may not even have heard of. Rackspace. So once that happens, then there is development. There are cloud engineers. They allow you, they create a space for you to do development. And as a developer, you do your development. And then, of course, since the data is secured, they're stored in the cloud data center somewhere far away, and you are accessing from your house, or you go to a cafe, and you're using the public Wi-Fi, or somewhere in a railway station, you want to access all your business data, which is highly confidential. How do we ensure security, right? So when it comes to cloud applications, there are cloud security specialists. And if you are like me, and if you read newspapers, the data laws are getting more and more stringent every day, right? So if you RBI gave mandates that you cannot save data of Indian subscribers, credit card and debit card outside India, right? So just because of this law, many data handling, saving, analysis have to change, right? So developers like you have to think differently on how can I retain the most essential data of, PII, private identifiable personal identifiable information, and then still make sure that some BI tool in Singapore or US or London can get data and turn it into reports and intelligence, right? So many things. So that there is also an analyst I was talking about. So yeah, so the role, you need more people basically when you go to do development for the cloud. Okay, so that's the summary. And coming to our favorite example, right? So of Netflix. As you know, Netflix is the cloud service. You can install the app, but you can also go through Netflix content in a browser. So there are a lot of technical jargons in this picture, but you don't have to worry about all that. As a student, and as a person who's interested in technology, just just think of the scale in which Netflix has transformed their service to the cloud, right? So worldwide. So let's say a Squid Game, something like Squid Game, has to be released in what, 150 countries. Think of all the data centers and different bit rates and a lot of different things that goes into it, right? So I'm sure somebody in this group listening today will be working for Netflix in the 10-15 years, right? And then you will also wonder how I mean, you will know how they do it exactly. But this is a very high level of how Netflix works. And take the product development, make it agile, do it on the cloud, right? So I'm not going to go into the details because I haven't worked for Netflix. I don't know much, but they use what they call their own Open Connect CDN or content distribution networks. Um, you don't have to again worry about it. They use Amazon cloud. There are many different types of levels: S3, S4, S1. So you use all that. And Netflix also gives their own Netflix server to content providers like AT&T, or in India it could be um, ACT or Airtel or Tata. So Netflix places their own server. So it's a very interesting way on how, at the click of a button the video starts playing. So it's amazing. So it's again a true marvel of software development on its own, right? So again, this is just to for you to look at it and sort of get a very high level idea of how you have to think when you have to do development, or when you think of development, what is the scale at which you will have to do when you become a professional. Okay, so that is 9:57. We have 18 more minutes. So I think that is most of what I wanted to discuss. And before I open up the floor for questions, so one more thing. So as Namita mentioned in the introduction, um, we should all have a lot of these interests and passions, things that we want to do, right? So for some, it could be programming, development. I have seen people who do amazing things, right? Because they're interested in it. So if you give them an interesting problem, I'll give you my own example. Once we were doing a very business critical update, and it was so interesting, but also the deadline was coming. So I had to work 36 hours straight in the office. So I went there Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. To office. And then I went home Thursday evening. So I didn't sleep. So I mean, although it's not good, but once in a while it's interesting. So if you're passionate about certain things, you will do it irrespective of if there is any outcome. So one of the things that I am passionate about is films and movies and writing. So I spend some of my free time in watching movies, in reading how movies are done, in writing. And he's also my mentor. I don't know how many of you know, Sri Ramesh Arvind. So I'm in frequent touch with him. I write stories for some of his films. So you need these kind of a let out or a hobby or an interest, because you cannot think of software development, data structures and databases and asset properties. You cannot have that in your mind 24/7, right? So for the magic to happen, you should also have a different set of things that you're passionate about, right? Success in one area motivates you to do well in other areas. So for me, the movies and all that, the other interests that I have give me very creative ideas that I can go back and implement in my day-to-day work, right? So like I said, although it was a technical talk, but I want you to know that have some passion, learn something very well, right? Whatever you do, as Namita mentioned, it's also my philosophy. Whatever you do it wholeheartedly. So put everything into it, learn something, and I'm sure you will also make many of your dreams come true. And with that, it's 10 o'clock and we have 15 more minutes for Q&A, right? So again, it's up to you on how well. There are no stupid questions, okay? You can ask me anything. And the most I will do if I don't like the question is I will say I won't answer your question. But again, if you liked it, if you want me to come back again to share some other topic or some other experts, please ask questions. Like I said, there are no stupid questions. You can also unmute yourself, give me any feedback and questions. Okay, so I have some more slides after this, but I'm waiting for Q&A. You can use the chat window if you're too shy. You can use the chat window. Okay, one moment. Let me see. Okay, Shrestha, yes, Bharadwaj says, no questions. Was very engaging, interesting section. Thank you for film analogies. Okay, I don't know how many of you can get what I'm wearing today. So this is also a very popular thing. Oops. Okay, let's see how many of you get the character from my T-shirt. Thank you, Shrestha. That was nice feedback, and I'm really glad that you felt it was engaging. Um, Good. You can ask me any question that we do in companies. Okay, Shreyas has asked, sir, does each sprint have a goal? Yes, we do have a goal. Before we begin the sprint, we clearly, decide what are the things, what are the story points. So we call them user stories. So we pick those user stories that we are able to complete within that 2 or 3 weeks sprint. Mostly it is 2 weeks. Some teams have a 3 week sprint, but there is a clear goal. So we only take those user stories that we can do in that sprint. So the goal of the sprint is to make sure that the development and testing of the user story is complete. That's a good question. Thank you. Thank you for that question. It could be user stories, bugs, um, anything. That's a good question. Thank you. Like I said, we still have how many? 10 more minutes to go. You can ask me any questions related to not product development. That's fine as well. Don't be shy. You can also unmute. So I'll wait for 2 or 3 more minutes. And yeah, let me tell you something that was a big change in perspective. Right. So I was also a student like you back in 2007 at Jane and CE. And one thing that I knew then, but it comes. I had a realization more after I left was that we have such a wonderful college infrastructure and teachers like Namita and others, especially in the CSLE department. So I felt that one thing I would have done differently now, in hindsight, with all the information or knowledge that I have, is that I would have probably been more active, right? When I had the opportunity as a student, because the whole atmosphere or the level of engagement, I was a shy student, right? I didn't ask a lot of questions. I just tried to absorb what the lecturers were teaching. But today, if I had to be a much more successful if I had to take my skills to the next level, I felt that I should have utilized more. I should have been more engaging with the teachers or the lecturers there. So yeah, that's what I would say. If you have any questions that you want to ask me, you can also share that with Namita, and then I'll try to answer that later. But many things, and maybe if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat window. But as many of you start giving your campus interviews and questions, one thing that I can tell you, as I've done hundreds of interviews, is that knowledge of a product, knowledge of a subject or product is very important. But what we see or we look at, and it's true for all the roles. It's true for entry level role. It's true for manager level role. It's true for vice presidents and senior roles. Is that attitude? What is your attitude while you are how do you present yourself, how do you talk, how is your body language, many things that people are able to observe because they have that experience. So if I think the most important thing is there will be some questions that you don't know the answer to, right? It happens at all interview levels. So that when I say attitude, will I say that I don't know the answer to the question, or will I say, or what, I knew the answer, I studied it, but I may have forgot. So people can see through that kind of thing. So maybe some of the things, if I can share you, is that while you take interviews and we start joining companies, you can be upfront. You can tell them honestly that what, I don't know about this, but given a chance, I would like to go back, study this, and then come back and answer the question. So that kind of attitude and communication skills, presentation skills, is what is appreciated more than how much you know a certain product or a skill, right? Coding. So, but coding is also important. So, no questions. Okay. So, for those of you who didn't figure this out, I'm wearing a Kurama t-shirt. It's from Naruto. I don't know how many of you did. But in summary, okay, so if you have questions, feel free to use the chat window. So just to summarize what we discussed today, right? We saw what is a traditional product development way, right? What are the different life cycle of a product from the idea to development to deployment, right? And we saw how agile, the way, how can we use the agile methodology to, we didn't discuss it in detail, but what are the different roles in agile, the iterative process. And in the end, we also saw how cloud is making a big difference in uh, uh, product development, right? So we went through it with an example of Netflix, but most companies today want to be resilient, right? So they want to have their customers access their products anywhere in the world, right? So like Byju's, for example, you can access that from anywhere in the world, right? So most of them are cloud based. So you need to think in terms of how you can make your product scalable, secure, right? But it is also a fact that if you look at the life cycle of a product, only a small percentage of it is programming, 12%, right? So most of it is support or maintenance, right? So you will join. So even I joined in the maintenance after college, because that's when I get an idea of the different products that we have, and from maintenance to integration to product development, and then into design. It takes a lot of time to get into design. 5 years, 10 years, depends on your skill. Okay? But yeah, so as you start joining companies, you can expect that many students who join from college to my company, Adaptian, they say they want to be in product development from day one, right? So that's a little bit difficult, because a lot of things, you need to know a lot of things before you start doing development and programming. But there is no harm in starting in QA or in support and then making your way into development. Okay, so good. And I can see that the feedback link is shared. So please use the feedback link. I know you didn't ask any questions. I was hoping that JNC students are like me, very enthusiastic, and but I'm very happy to know that a lot of you guys are smart geek types. You were answering my quiz questions in the beginning. But you know next time when you get an opportunity to interact with an industry expert, it could be anybody, feel free to ask any question that you have. Like I said, there are no stupid questions. The more questions you ask, the more intelligent, or the more answers you will have, right? So one request before you log off: please use the form to provide feedback. I'd love to hear what you guys thought of today's session, right? So some of you, I mean, some of the things that I presented, you would have already known. Some could be new, but this feedback helps the faculty to gauge the level of interest and understand what are the types of things that you want to listen to. So the more feedback that you give, the more better. And you don't have to all be appreciative. You can also share critical feedback, right? So if there are certain things that you didn't like, please highlight that in your feedback, and the faculty will take that and use it to deliver or organize better presentations for all of you. Okay, good. So before I end, one more thing. It's a story. It's a very interesting story. Um, so about a very famous person. Let's see how many of you get it. I know many people have already logged off. But there is this boy growing up in South Africa. His father was a drunkard. He used to drink a lot, and he used to beat up his children. So because of that father's habit, his wife left him. Okay, good. Oh my God, I'm surprised. Shrestha is good. You got it. But this boy, because of all the experiences that he had in his life, developed Asperger's syndrome. So Asperger's syndrome means that it's a borderline. You can't express your feelings properly. But he didn't he didn't think of it as a limitation, and he went on to become one of the richest people in the world, Elon Musk, right? So you could be going through some challenges today, but don't think of it as a limitation. So think of all the other things that you could do with the knowledge that you have. All right. So we have one more question from Amit. That's good. How different is it working in service versus product? It is different, but both have their own advantages and disadvantages. While working with the services company, you already take what is built by, you already take a finished product, and then you try to implement it or customize it for a customer based on the requirement. But the rules of the product development, agile, everything will remain the same. But you're already trying to fit an existing product into a customer's requirement. In a product development company, you're trying to build a product which will suit a big demography, right? So, but both have their own advantages. In services, you get to work with the customer, know their challenges, upfront, firsthand, and so on. So it's slightly different, but not that different. The agile and product development, everything will remain the same. I hope I answered your question, Amit. So with that, we've come to the end of our presentation, our session. And it was very different for me, and also a pride moment for presenting what I knew and what I've gathered in these 14 years to people in my college. So thank you. The engagement was very good, and I hope it was even more. But again, there's always something we can learn. So if you have any questions that you want to ask, feel free to share with Namita, and I will try to get back and answer with her. Okay. Thank you all. It was really nice talking to all of you. Have a pleasant day and enjoy. All the best. Yeah. Bye.
Vikram, thank you so much. It was very interesting session. Even I personally enjoyed it. I'm sure my students also enjoyed it. Shall have more webinars like this in future also.
Yes. Yeah. Like I said, even I enjoyed. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come and present with the students.
And students, feedback link is shared already. Vikram has told you. Please give the feedback.
Yes. Okay. Thank you all. Have a nice day ahead. Bye-bye.
Bye, Vikram. I'll be stopping the recording and ending the call.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.